Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Dungeons and Dragons stories. I have played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. It's not my first game, nor is it really even my favorite, but you end up playing it. You've got a group, you've got people around, someone's going to suggest D&D at some point in time. I went through a period where I wasn't all that interested, but if someone throws a D&D game, I'm in. It's such a classic and a rich history, great system. Great system at the moment. I'm running a 5th edition game, and really enjoying that. This particular story is from a few years ago. The system is Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. It is a birthday party. Again, I will omit the names to protect the innocent, even though they're not. So I've mentored a few groups into gaming in general, and Dungeons and Dragons in particular. This is a particular group I mentored out of a hobby store in Burbank. Great group of kids. They have gone their separate ways and have their difficulties. I'm officiating a wedding for one of them tomorrow, in fact. But this is kind of at the height of that particular group. If you've purchased any of my Victory System books, there is a group credited as the Lollipop Guild in the opening credits. This is the Lollipop Guild. They've had problems. But oh my god, when it worked, it worked. One of them was having a birthday party. And for his birthday, he wanted to run a game of Dungeons and Dragons. His first game of Dungeons and Dragons. That's important. At this point in time, they're in their late teens, approaching adulthood. They've been doing this for a while. Has all the makings of a good day. And then he announces what he wants people to make up for characters. He wants to run a 20th level campaign. If you are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons and the general level system, first level characters are not useless, but they're very crispy. They can fall apart pretty easily. You lose first level characters on a regular basis. They develop experience and get on. Around 5th level, they're getting on towards competent. 10th level, they're just masters of stuff. 20th level, they're approaching apotheosis. You've got characters of a power level where they're next to demigods, if not actually demigods at this point in time. He wants to open with that. That's how he wants to start. Well, especially in 3.5, it's all just bigger numbers, really. More abilities. The characters become somewhat complex, developing more abilities, having access to more spells and more skills and whatnot. As time goes on and they gain more experience, he wants to start us at 20th level. I'm game. But I refuse to make a boring 20th level character. And you can. That's the thing of it. You know, if you build a character at a higher level, yeah, you've got a lot of advantages. You start, you've got more hit points, and you hit more accurately, and you're harder to hit because you've got a higher armor class, more spells doing more damage, or more special abilities, more feats in 3.5. Okay, higher stats. But you haven't developed a story for that character. You can write a backstory for a 20th level character. You can if you go to the effort. Or you can slap a name on it and find a picture and just roll dice. You know, you've got these numbers. You're going to beat a lot of stuff up. Awesome. Whereas if you start at a lower level, even first level, and roleplay that character through that, it takes a lot of time. The game that I'm running every other Saturday, I started them at first level, and I've determined to work the way up to 20. They just hit 8 after a few months of play. And but these characters have a background, have stories about what they've done together, this rich and complex interwoven story. The thing I love about role-playing, you start the characters at 20th level for a one-off game. It's a one-off game. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It's not going to be Shakespeare, but that's okay. So people start talking about what they're building and what they're making. 20th level fighter, very impressive. 20th level magic user, also very impressive. The magic user curve starts to go way up the further you get along. You have access to these spells that can damn near crack continents. 20th level cleric, 20th level rogue. Oh, that was a scary one. Mostly humanocentric. The rogue was a kender. And here's the amazing thing. I didn't immediately murder that character. Because that's one of my long-standing rules. If someone in the party is playing a kender, I get to kill it straight off, and then they can make a real character. Kenders form a they're a halfling race from Dragonlance, and they're all cute and bubbly and cuddly, and they like to steal your shit, and that's part of their culture, so you've got an excuse to be a dick to other players and take their stuff, and it's funny, No. I'm playing a serious fantasy game. This is going to be Lord of the Rings. You know, you can take that kender stuff, make another character. No, Scott, what do you really feel? You're not a fan of kenders. But, okay. The player who's playing the kender, talented, smart, cute as a button, and knew better than to overstep the bounds of the character. We're good. 20th level mage, 20th level fighter, 20th level cleric, 20th level rogue. So Scott, what are you playing? I show up with a character who is a first level Drow bard. And I get odd looks, but that's my character. And I get all these questions. He's wearing a lot of treasure. He's got a lot of rings and bracelets and necklaces. Kind of like Mr. T blew up. But, nah. Drow elves, dark elves. They're the elves with the black skin and the silver hair. Usually from the Underdark. They have a tendency towards chaos and evil. But he was a member of the party. He's more neutral than anything else. Maybe a little evil. But he wasn't bothering anyone. He was being a bard. A first level bard amongst 20th level characters. The only thing that I had to do at the front was turn to the kender and say, okay, I know your people. And anything on me, you are free to steal absolutely anything you like. I understand it's part of your culture, but if you steal this ring, we are going to have some serious problems. Just letting you know. And the kender is very good about it. And while some players might have gone, "Oh, that's the thing I need to steal. I'm going to do that because that's going to be that's going to be the most fun." No, she understood. It's like, okay, no, if that'll help us get along, we're good. Good move. And then we had this adventure, and I will give the game master some credit. He kept a group of 20th level characters worried. Not everyone in the group was that experienced with Dungeons and Dragons. They hadn't played the characters up to this point, so they weren't really big on what they could do, what they were immune to, what they could tangle with. If it sounded dangerous and if the game master did a good enough job making it sound dangerous, then it was probably dangerous. The game master did this part very, very well. I had shown the game master my character sheet before the game. And he proved that becomes important. So we start off with the Tavern Brawl. You've got to have a Tavern Brawl. And 20 level characters in a Tavern Brawl are okay, but we lit the bar on fire. The people, and there were attackers from out of town and goblins charging in. It was all very, warfare-like. And the fighter went to fight the goblins, and the cleric was healing people, and everyone was trying to get people out of the bar. I played my loot to give people a +1 circumstantial bonus in efforts to get out of the bar to safety. It came in really handy because the players didn't really need it, but the people in the bar weren't that high a level, and it really helped facilitate a lot of rescuing. So I felt pretty good about that. And we went on to deal with some other situations. Turned out that there was a bad guy, a great evil, the big bad, a boss battle that we had to head for. And this was a terrible, terrible thing to have to deal with, because this villain was the Dungeon Master's pet character. It's okay. Kind of a half-demon, something horrific spellcaster wanted to take over the kingdom. It is a rule of using firearms that you never point your firearm at something you do not intend to destroy. I have translated this rule to dungeon mastering. Never put anything in front of player characters you do not intend to be destroyed. The Dimension the Dungeon Master really liked this character that he was using as our villain. I almost feel bad. Almost. We had to walk through a valley of dragons. Red dragons just up on these mountaintops, hovering over us, looking down. And of course the party said what the party should have said, tactically. Put the bard in the middle of the party. He's the weakest one. Which was a good move. So, had the fighter in lead, and the magic user in the back, and the cleric and the rogue, and me in the middle. And they were all really busy, watching the surroundings, making sure the dragons weren't making any moves, and the dragons didn't attack. The dragons stayed exactly where they were. None of them rolled high enough on their perception roll to notice that the bard in the middle of the party was just staring the dragons down. Looking at them. Without the slightest hint of fear. But first level Drow bard in a party full of 20th level characters. I was lucky to be there, frankly. We get to the fight with the big bad. It took some combat to get us there. I stayed in the middle of the party, relatively safe, but I made sure I gave everyone their +1 circumstantial bonus to fight and to their armor class. Playing my fingers raw on my loot. And the big bad shows up. 6 foot tall half demon something. I don't remember. He wasn't well described. The Dungeon Master tried to convey him entirely in acting and personality without a lot of physical description. You should have a picture of your big bad, or be able to verbally paint a picture. Take a time to give a physical description. The personality came through. Personality came through and pissed me off. Well, pissed off my character. I was fine with him, but called my character out for being there in the middle of all this stuff where he had no right to be. So, I look at the big bad, tell him that's it. I have had it with you. Turn to, was it the rogue or one of the fighters? and took off this ring, the ring that would cause troubles if it was stolen. Took it off, handed it to him. Could you hold this for me for a second? He took it and found that he was not standing next to a first-level Drow bard. He was standing next to a colossal black dragon Draco Lich. Colossal, one of the largest size classes in Dungeons & Dragons, really, really big. Black dragon, a dragon who is evil to his core and chaotic in nature, capable of breathing acid, and one of the more vile, fiendish forms of dragons. Draco Lich, it was an undead dragon. A Lich is a wizard or other magic user who is keeping themselves functioning past death by an effort of will and dark magic so that they can continue their wizardly, usually evil, wizardly ways. A Draco Lich is a dragon who has done about the same thing. And the group kind of freaks out a little bit. Well, I would have if I wasn't playing the Draco Lich. One of the fighters gets ready to plane jump out. The magic users have their spells of Dimension Door ready so that they can just escape from the whole situation, pull the D-rings, and get out. And I just looked at them. And I looked at the other players in the room and said, what do you think I did with my other 19 levels? That was a feat of research and mathematics. Levels are roughly equivalent to challenge rating in 3.5. So I created a challenge rating 19 monster. Black Dragon, Draco Lich, Colossal. Came out to challenge rating 19. Beautiful. I had a level left. So I actually had a level of Bard. For my first action, I leap into the air, take wing, and turn invisible. Spellcaster. High-level Black Dragon. So somewhere over the bad guy there is an invisible, giant, black, undead dragon who did not like him. Big Bad throws a chromatic wall, or prismatic wall, I believe. Very dangerous to touch. Absolutely lethal in some ways. Lots of different random effects. And about 10 feet high. Yeah, flew over it. And while everyone else is engaging him in combat and killing his minions and taking stuff out, I unleashed the fury of the character on the Dungeon Master's pet character. Claw, claw, bite, wing, wing, tail. 6 attacks. The high-level dragon can get multiple attacks, using each of the 4 claws, biting with the jaws, wing buffeting. These are blades and points on the wings, and of course you got the spiky tail, but I didn't attack with the tail's full strength. Now, a Lich has a special ability that if you have the Lich template on your character, you gain the ability of the Liches, aside from not having to eat or drink or breathe or anything like that. You also have the Lich's paralyzing touch. So it was claw, claw, bite, wing, wing, paralyzing tail. Took the big bad down to single-digit hit points and left him paralyzed until someone could wake him up. Dungeon Master took it pretty well, informed me that that was okay, that there were minions, and sooner or later his minions would come and recover him, help him recuperate from being paralyzed and get him back to being evil, at which point I camped his corpse. I just, undead dragon of immense power. I'm just going to turn invisible and sit here. And there are people who are... I am perfectly willing to let your people get within distance of my acid breath before I inform them it's a bad idea to try and get your body out. My character had nothing but time at that point in time. I'd come up with a backstory for him, why he was masquerading as a Drow bard. The dragon's name was Aikuarin. He had a vast store of wealth and treasure in another mountain, not that far away, but far enough away. And he didn't want adventurers coming by every Tuesday to try and kick in all of his traps, kill all of his minions, and take his treasure. He wanted to read. He had a lot of books. Might want to write a couple eventually. Wanted his privacy, so he figured he would become a bard and wander through the human lands, singing amazing songs about other mountains to go attack so they would leave his alone. He'd spend 100 years doing nothing but singing songs about every mountain but his own. And then he should have plenty of time and privacy. Spending 50 years camping the bad guy's corpse so that his minions would lose track and forget to come and rescue him. It was a bump in the road, but Draco Lich all the time in the world. Happy birthday. In some ways, I wanted to demonstrate that it might have been a mistake to start at 20th level. But, as a one-off, that's fine. In another way, there's a thing that I really, really like to push. As a writer of role-playing games, as a game master, as a person who counsels other game masters. What I like to push is read people's damn character sheets. Don't just, oh yeah, that's fine, and hand it back. Read the sheets you're handed. Ask for a sheet when someone is done with their character. Read the sheet. And know what you're getting into. You don't have to ask people to change stuff, but for God's sake, if those characters catch you by surprise with their abilities later on in the game, as opposed to being caught by surprise by what the player is able to do with the abilities. There's a difference. So I didn't know your character could do that. Well, you saw the sheet. I handed it to you. And it's a lot of stuff to read. There's a, depending on the game system, characters are complicated things to look at. But look at the spell list. Look at how many ranks that you have in the skills. Stats are stats, and if they've got high stats, that's wonderful. They manage to roll really well, or choose their templates or races really effectively. Stats are stats. And high numbers are fine. It's okay to have high numbers, but having the highest numbers or having min-max things. We've only got one skill, but you got all of your points in that skill. Character doesn't know how to ride a horse, but he can swing a sword until his arm falls off. Oh, look at those stats. His arm's not going to fall off. It doesn't just tell the game master if they're going to get surprised by the character, to read the character. It also tells the game master how to hurt the character or bother it. Does the character have a background? Is there something in its past? And if not, work that out with the player. It's a game, it's fun, it shouldn't be homework, there shouldn't be paperwork, but there's paperwork involved. And a dungeon master or a game master has elected to do the paperwork, or at least, you're not just lording over people and rolling dice and laughing as their characters die. That's not how it goes. That's not what it's about. You're telling a collective story, and you're going to have a hard time telling that story if you don't know what's on your character sheet. Another Lollipop Guild story, someone else is running a game. in my system, well, the proto-victory system, when it was just going to be a fantasy game called the Shattered Earth. We took there was a round-robin tournament. Each member of the Lollipop Guild got to run a game. And it was the Iron GM's tournament. We're going to see who was the best game master, and they got to choose what I would run next. And there were some interesting results and non-results, and some of it was. But one of the game masters decided, hey, you guys need to get some more armor because my adventure is really dangerous. And another player is playing a character who will eventually become a legend. I'm going to talk some stories about him once I've got... No, I'm going to have to tell the stories. The character's name was Zan. He was about this tall. He was blue. He was a demon. Think of the Tooth Fairies from Hellboy, except with a top hat and a monocle. Zan was only this big, but he was really strong, and he had a really high damage resistance. His DR stat was pretty amazing, and in those days, armor added to the DR stat. And Zan's player even looked at the Game Master and said, do you want to look at my character? Because I've got a pretty high... No, you're going to need... Even you're going to need armor. Trust me, you're going to need armor. So Zan's player bought Zan some armor. And the Game Master spent an hour of that game yelling and spitting because he couldn't hurt Zan. Because his DR was too high. A moment of reading would have fixed that. A moment of actually understanding what he was asking people to do or what he was threatening them with and what they were threatening to do right back. Yeah. Read your player's character sheets. It takes a little time. It helps fill out the game system. If there are blanks, if there's history that you need to fill in, take a few minutes to work out the history and give them a little backstory going into it. Be amazed how rich an experience that becomes. And if someone hands you a colossal black dragon Draco Lich and says, I'm just going to use the one level of Bard and shapeshift into a Drow for the majority of this. Maybe you don't put your favorite character in front of them. Just saying. I know that Game Master and probably other members of the Lollipop Guild are going to see this video. And no offense is meant whatsoever. We've had this discussion. I love you people. But damn. Thank you for joining me on this little journey through my past and memories of Dungeons & Dragons. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumb up. If you didn't enjoy it, give me a thumb down. Feedback is feedback. Leave me a comment. If there's something you'd like to hear me talk about, or questions you have, or suggestions, leave me a comment. You'll like leaving me a comment. I like getting comments. Subscribe. I like getting subscribers. Subscribers is one of those numbers I always track, and having more subscribers means having more stuff and more views, and I love having more views. If you really dug the video, I invite you to hit me up at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Everything helps. It allows me to make more videos and better videos, and we're going to be doing some things on the channel in a bit, and that's going to take a little bit more in the way of support. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me, and I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.